Yes, Crystal, we are so happy to have you here in this space.
Thank you for having me. Thank y'all for making time for me this evening. I really, really appreciate you for showing up. Uh, most of you know me, there's a few newcomers, but before I share a little bit more about me and my work, I want to acknowledge the land that we are currently occupying, which belonged to the Tongva, Kizh, and Chumash peoples. If anyone's not familiar with land acknowledgements, it is a way of bringing awareness to the history of colonialism and the harm that Indigenous peoples have endured and continue to endure. Even though we ourselves did not create the systems of oppression that exist, we are still a part of and operating within them. So it's just really important to acknowledge that colonialism is one of the earliest forms of trauma inflicted upon Indigenous peoples, and we want to make sure that we are honoring them as well. So, my name is Crystal Whiteaker, and I am the author of Brave Leadership is a Choice, and I am also the founder and CEO of Crystal Lily Creative, and I am an inclusive branding and leadership development consultant. So I work with leaders and brands to help them get rooted in their core values to create genuinely inclusive environments and experiences for everyone that they engage with. And we're going to be having a conversation about my book and the things that my framework is hinged off of. I'm accompanied here by Matthew Newman, who is the founder and owner of All In Inglewood Co-working. I really appreciate you for being here and co-leading this conversation this evening. This is full circle because Matthew has supported me in my work from the beginning when I started to make my transition from being a photographer that had built a really inclusive brand to a consultant who helps other people build inclusive brands. Matthew gave me the first platform to share my knowledge, and now we're here. So I really appreciate it. I love it.
Of course. Give Crystal another round of
Before we dive in, we're gonna have a conversation around the work itself, but I would like to share with you all just a little bit from chapter 2, which is all about creating mindful connections. Everyone here knows me, and I feel like our connections are pretty mindful. We share some values, there's some overlapping alignment, and I hope that this resonates. We'll start with a quote from Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. You have the power to impact people regardless of whether or not you ever personally connect with them, so it's important to consider how you want people to experience you. I want to reframe something for you in terms of the way you view your business and professional environments. Businesses and professional environments are social, relational environments. Typically, businesses are viewed as professional environments, and social environments have been considered separate spaces from work environments. But the reality is, our professional environments are social environments. Why? Because we interact with other human beings. Whether you work with people in person or online, those are human interactions. This includes the comments on social media. This is why even within a professional environment, you're still creating a social relational environment. Social environment refers to the physical and social settings where people live, work, learn, and interact with individuals or groups of people. Healthy social environments are brave spaces that allow room for curiosity, open communication, learning, growth, creativity, collaboration, feedback, and belonging. Inclusion in social environments goes beyond diversity and representation. It requires being open and mindful through learning and unlearning what is truly welcoming to all people. Awareness from within yourself, in your roles and way of being. Awareness for the people you collaborate with, and awareness of the connections that make up your community are vital in creating environments that offer a sense of safety and belonging for people. So think about the type of social environment you want to create within and around the role you're in. Think about how you want people to feel when they interact with you or see the way your existing community communicates in the comment threads online. You might be awesome, but if there are people in your comments being harmful towards others without being called in to examine their behavior, that's not going to show a very safe, supportive community space. And all of this trickles over into our personal environments too. I don't subscribe to the school of thought that we leave everything at their respective doors, such as leaving personal stuff at the door when we get to work or leaving work stuff at the door when we get home. We are humans, not robots. No matter how much we try to create separation, all of the environments we engage in will have an impact on us and influence how we show up wherever we go. I'm not saying you need to share all of your personal experiences with your team at work. Generally speaking, if you have a lot going on at home and it's impacting how you function at work, simply making your team aware of the reality that you're dealing with a lot will remind them that you're human, create opportunities for connection, and give you the chance to ask for support. This can also help cultivate a more brave space.
Crystal, this is a synopsis. I think if y'all would like to give some finger snaps or a hand clap to that, because it was incredibly powerful. And as I was reading this book, I almost became someone new. Why? Because it began to unlock some things that I have once closed or locked away, or some things that I had never realized were supposed to come to the forefront. And so my encouragement to each and every one of you all before we go into this conversation, which I believe will be incredibly impactful tonight, is that you all buy up these books. If you have not purchased the book, take advantage of the opportunity to purchase them tonight and buy them up. Not only for you, don't be selfish in your growth, share that growth with someone else. And speaking about growth, I have to start off this conversation with a quote that Crystal opened up with on page 11. And it says, "Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change we seek." Close quote, former President Barack Obama. So I have to ask you, Crystal, that in your pursuit of writing Brave Leadership is a Choice, who did you become?
I became more me. I feel like I'm the most me I've ever been. I'm calmer, I'm more discerning, more patient, definitely less reactive. And I find that, I think that comes from the connection that I've created within myself, because I've had to sit with myself a lot through this. Has anybody here ever written a book? Or I've got I know there's some professors in the crowd. Even a curriculum, a class lesson, there is something about creating something and sitting with it and reviewing it over and over and over again. And speaking for myself, I want to be honest in not only what I create, but how I behave because of it. I don't want to create something and not live in alignment with it. So just really becoming more discerning and certain of who I am and how I want to be in the world.
That's rich. And as you reread your book and your work, and as others read the book for the first time, second time, third time, they'll hear that the tone in which you just delivered the excerpt from chapter 2 it reads the exact same way. Like, for those who know you or hear you, they hear you in the words that are written on these white pages in this black font. And it starts off with a very strong emotional connection. And that emotional connection was the tribute or dedication to mom. Why did you dedicate the book to mom?
Ooh, because so my mom and I have done a lot of work the last couple of years, 2, 3 years, on evolving our relationship. We've both experienced a lot of life changes, and we've had to do a lot of our own inner work and healing, and we've done that on our own and together. And I'm incredibly proud of myself and her for the work that we have done. I actually made an Instagram post about her today because I found out yesterday she wanted to be able to be here this evening, and the universe had other plans. But she is one of the bravest people that I know. And she's become one of the bravest people that I know, arguably during one of the most challenging periods of her life. And I'm just really, really proud of her for sticking to her commitments and continuing to show up in the best ways that she can, despite any circumstances that arise. And I think that so much of what I have created and reflected on is in part due to her.
You said that you've become more calmer in this journey. What has that, for those who are watching who may be yearning for more calm in their life, what has that done for you? What have you been able to do more of?
Relax.
Yeah, that's real.
Relax. I feel a certain level of peace that I didn't have even a few years ago. I'm less reactive. I'm less fiery. I'm very direct and just and clear about things, but I'm able to pause and really consider what is happening, both to and for me.
Yeah.
So I think just that peace, that discernment. Like, I keep going back to that.
It's important.
Yeah, being able to sit with yourself.
Yes.
And really reflect. One of the things that I talk about in the book is different self-reflection modalities and self-connection modalities. And I talk about mirror work and how powerful it can be to just sit with your own reflection and have conversations with yourself. It sounds weird, but it's incredibly powerful to be able to connect with yourself in a way that you might need, in the same way that you would with a friend.
You're your truest friend. As you were speaking, I was thinking of something, and what was spoken to me is that in the moment of peace, wisdom is birthed. So as often as you are experiencing this state of calmness, you're beginning to be more discerning of what's around you, what's happening in you, what's happening for you, so that wisdom can be birthed. Someone who's very close to me says one thing. He says, when I sit in meetings, I'm often quiet, but when I speak wisdom. Because he's had moments to really think through with himself and digest and reflect upon what's happening around him, so that when it's his turn to speak, when it's your turn to act, whether it's something that's culturally happening, socially happening, when it's your turn to show up and make a change, there's wisdom in that place. There's something to that stuck out to me. It's a quote that you have, and it says, or it's in your writing, it says, I have a unique understanding of what is needed to create awareness and open up perspectives. Why? Because I have learned how to navigate the world through multiple perspectives. This work is deeply personal to me. It is truly done out of love for myself and for the people and communities who deserve to have a sense of safety and belonging in the world. believe you've already touched on this, but I would love for you to go into it a little bit more about why navigating this world, and as crazy as some of us may see it, navigating this world, why is navigating this world through multiple perspectives so important?
We all have different lived experiences. I mean, even you and I have different lived experiences. I think for context, the multiple lenses that I navigate the world through, I'm very clear on the positions of power and privilege that I have, which are that I am able-bodied, I'm college educated, neurotypical, middle class, financially secure. And then on the flip side of that, areas where I don't hold power and privilege include being Black, queer, and a woman. And navigating that through the lens of so much intersectionality helps me relate to and connect to people on so many different levels. And I think that it's important for all of us to be mindful of that reality. We all have these different lived experiences, and we cannot ignore one person's reality just because it's not our own reality.
That's good.
I think about we were having a conversation earlier today, and one of the things that came to mind, it was a handful of years ago, it was probably the first or second year of the Me Too movement. And I was traveling for a client, and I was sitting in an airport restaurant bar, and this gentleman sat next to me and just started chatting, as one does when they're traveling. And he was sharing with me about his family and his children and his work. And he mentioned that one of his children was transgender. And he then shared how he and his wife had to learn so much to be able to support their child because they didn't want to make them feel like they were unwelcome or there was something wrong with them, because there wasn't. And then he made what I thought it was kind of a weird segue, but he brought up the Me Too movement. And he was like, I love that my child is able to live as their true self in the world. And then the segue was, but this Me Too movement, it's really hard to be a white male in the world. And I thought, well, that's an interesting segue. And I remember just pausing and looking at him, and I said, you do realize that fear and that sense, that lack of safety that you're talking about, is people of color, women, LGBTQ plus people have felt that lack of safety for generations. Yeah. And he paused and he looked at me and he was like, wow, I really never thought of it like that. And I can't tell you how many times I've been in conversations with people where they'll say things to me and it's like, oh, I never thought of it that way. Yeah. Yeah. So it's really important to be able to remove ourselves from just our own individuality and consider the collective.
It actually talks about this, and direct me, Crystal, if this is in alignment with what you're saying, but this disruption in the identification of certain biases, right? Like I believe that a lot of us play within it, regardless of what color we fall on the spectrum, right? It's like we all face these certain microaggressions of things that we did not know. One couple of things I jotted down, it says, when I look at you, I don't see color. Or America is a melting pot. There's only one race, the human race. I'm guilty of it. I used to present slides to clients in black and white. And the way that I presented it was that we don't see color, we see talent. And it wasn't until Jasmine, my wife, of course, began to point it out to say, babe, that's a microaggression that you're not aware of. But how can we, as folks who, we're in this room because we believe in the writings of this book, whether we've read it or not. Truth be told, I would argue someone up and down if they disagree with me. Not now, later. But the point is that we more than likely agree with this, the information in this book. So how do we help someone become more aware of these types of microaggressions that we, I say collectively, possess?
I love this question. So some of the examples that you share, like we don't see color. I'm biracial, so I grew up in hearing that and thinking that it was completely fine until I was an adult, right? So the simplest answer that I could give you to your question is if you are saying something or you are hearing something being stated, ask yourself if that same comment would be said to someone who didn't have that identity. So, for example, if a comment is being said to a woman, would you say that same thing to a man? So, like, an example for that would be, "You're so emotional." For the men in this room, has anyone ever said to you, "You're so emotional"?
Yeah.
Compared to women in this room, you know?
That's good example.
Or even like the "I don't see color" comment. Would a white person ever look at another white person and say, "I don't see color"? If you are able to discern within that you wouldn't say something to someone else with a different identity than the person you're speaking to, then it's very likely a microaggression.
It's so interesting. Micro, small aggression, right? How small these seem, but they're so big in the context. In this example that you had just given, oh, you're so emotional. That has probably been heard so many times contributed. I just had a client share some things, won't even go in this conversation, but to an employee of mine, and complete microaggression. But I had to call them out on it, right? So that they recognized it, so that they can begin to attribute those same qualities to other comments that are being made. I want to touch on inclusion. I believe this is a perfect segue. And again, treating this topic of inclusion, utilizing one of your quotes from the book that says incorporating behaviors, languages, or language and practices intended to honor the humanity of marginalized people shouldn't be trendy.
It shouldn't.
And we've seen DEI skyrocket, right, over the last couple years. But this last part is that these behaviors, languages, etc., intended to honor the humanity of marginalized shouldn't be trendy. Can you elaborate on that for the folks in the room?
Yeah. So I would say arguably after 2020, we've seen this wave of inclusive marketing, which I have feelings about that phrase anyway. But there are brands and organizations, even small business owners, where you're seeing inclusive messaging in the form of language or even visuals that are representative of and intended to invite people from more diverse backgrounds. Yeah. The problem with that is that often people aren't doing deeper work behind the scenes. It's just a marketing campaign. And inclusion isn't something that should start and end with marketing. Marketing should actually be an afterthought if you're doing that. And when I think about inclusive messaging, it's what's written, it's the visuals, it's the behavior, and if the behavior and the things that are happening behind the scenes don't align with what is being presented to the public, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons. It's people and their experiences shouldn't be treated as a commodity.
I'll tell you this, Crystal, one thing that I have learned, I'll tell Crystal, she knows it, but to each and every one of you, is one thing that I learned sitting under Crystal and listening at her so passionately speak to this very topic of inclusion was the aspect of incorporating on RSVP forms the request for accommodations. And so many of us miss that when we facilitate, moderate events. We don't include on the form, do you need a translator? Do you need an interpreter? Do you need wheelchair accessibility? We never include that. And so when somebody comes to the door and we're like, oh snap, we didn't think about a wheelchair ramp. We didn't think that the space between the chairs have to be between 3 and 4 feet. We didn't think of that. We just moderate an event. And so I say that is that for those who have not had an opportunity to meet you and to understand what you provide as a consultant, like that is a nugget that can literally change the game. Like that one piece of nugget, I will go on record and share, allows someone to be welcomed into our fraternity to where he's deaf. He came to an event at the co-working space, and guess what was in front for him? An interpreter. But we knew it going in. And he said, I never would have imagined I could be a part of this fraternity because I didn't know if deaf was allowed. It's magical.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too, even with when you're considering accommodations for disability, historically, disability and accessibility in that way, it's been an afterthought.
That's right.
It was the interpreter who did the signing for Rihanna at the Super Bowl, right? She went viral around the internet. But there were also conversations within, because I am not a disability educator. That is not my lane, and I know that. However, I follow a lot of other disability educators, and the key conversation that they were having was, yes, let's give her her flowers, but let's also point out the fact that that was a separate feed. It wasn't on the television. So people that were watching the Super Bowl, if they needed that accessibility, they had to get it from another source. So it was almost like an afterthought. It's like, yes, you did it, but you still didn't consider how accessible it actually was.
That's right. Imagine the person sitting in the living room with their family who needs the accommodation of interpretation, and they're having to watch it on a whole nother device while we're watching, but I have my money on the TV. I left out the word for a reason. But they're watching on an entirely different device. So to your point, it's always an afterthought. As I started off, I encourage everyone to buy up the books. That's number one. But I want to end this with this question, Crystal, if it's okay by you to end here with sharing with the lovely folks in the rooms tonight is, what do you want when they get the book in their hand? What do you want them to walk away with? What's that one piece that you want us to walk away with?
I want people to feel more grounded in themselves and sure of how they can open up conversations and connect with people to understand what is needed for people to feel safe. And I also want to clarify that we can't just assume safety for people. It's really about creating more of a brave space, hence the title. Creating a brave space by being brave in yourself and being true to who you are and being grounded enough in that to let people know this is who I am and this is what I believe, and you are welcome here for reasons X, Y, and Z, so that other people can feel they can access that sense of internal safety because you're being brave enough to show up in that way, and they can open up and hopefully be brave enough to do the same. I want it to be a ripple effect.
Excellent. Excellent. Brave leadership is a choice, an inclusive guide to creative belonging. This time we'll open up the floor for Q&A.
Yeah, if you guys have questions, open to questions.
Great question so far, though. Thank you.
Of course.
No pressure.
I just want to say I appreciate how you challenge us. As I'm sitting here listening to you, it's been a minute since you've been in my ear. It's like, oh, yeah, she's right. And then I turned to a page of the book where like my quote is, and I'm like, oh man, I gotta get back to that. So I want to acknowledge that with all of us, this is hard work. And anything that's worthwhile is going to be hard. But I think what you're inviting us to do is to keep returning to asking ourselves these questions rather than holding ourselves to some standard where at every moment we're knocking it out of the park. I think it's very human to say, this is really exhausting. I'm going to lay it out now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it is exhausting. And that's the thing. That's why I think that, 1 hour, 2 hour DEI trainings in an organization aren't enough. Yes, they help, but if you're really going to make an impact and a difference, it has to be from the inside out, and it takes time. So being patient with yourself, like I said in the beginning, I've learned how to be more patient with myself because I'm not only helping clients in organizations do this stuff, I'm doing it within my own self as well, because I've had to deconstruct a lot of things that I internalized growing up. And it does require patience. And you're going to make mistakes. It's how you handle those mistakes, you know?
So at least having a resource or a tool to
Mm-hmm.
handle.
Yeah. And ideally, you get to a place where you are able to have that filter of, okay, let me just pause for a moment, consider what I'm aware of. Like, what is that awareness? Why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling? Why do I want to react or respond the way that I do? And then when you feel grounded enough to respond, do it with compassion. Yes.
I also wanted to point out, I'm really appreciative of an inclusive guide to creating belonging, because I think doing DEI, people think it's inclusion and diversity, and those are the buzzwords, but all of that is because we're trying to get belonging to be the top of mind thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people lose sight of the belonging piece
Yeah.
of walking into a space and going, I belong here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how important that is. And so I definitely want to acknowledge that, because as a DEI practitioner, I think people hire us to come and fix people don't want to come here and work for us, so make them come, right? But I can't think people want to be here. They have to feel that they belong.
Yes. Yes. They have to feel that for sure. Thank you for that. I also want to build on that too with the belonging piece. This work, and when you read the book, you will find that I talk about creating belonging from within first. So yes, people can go into an organization and ideally they're able to, or any space, even if it's not a professional organization, any space, ideally they're able to access that sense of belonging, and it comes from within because we understand what we need as individuals to feel that sense of belonging. And it's where we're able to discern, all right, well, does this space feel aligned? And if it does feel aligned, then I can access that internal sense of belonging. And being able to communicate with one another what we need to feel that sense of belonging is really important. Yes.
Can you speak more about cultivating the belonging from within and where that really starts for you and how you kind of bring that about?
Yeah. So it's a couple of things. Anybody who knows me and is familiar with me and my work, I talk a lot about core values, and being really clear on what your core values are is first and foremost very important, because then you're able to discern, all right, well, if something doesn't feel right, if I don't feel like I belong, what is the value system in the ecosystem? And also cultivating that for yourself, you have to be able to sit with yourself. Figure out what modalities work for you, whether it is journaling or speaking out loud to yourself, mirror work, any of those things, like figuring out what you need in order to connect to yourself first, so that you can always go back to that space when you are thinking through what moves you want to make, how you want to respond to something, how certain things make you feel, and really understand what makes you feel safe within yourself, so that when you're in spaces and that feeling, that sense of lack of belonging is being challenged, you can refer back to those modalities that help you connect to self and ideally communicate it and co-create that sense of belonging with people. Mm-hmm. Thank you for the question.
Just a comment there in thought, thinking about a core value of respect. And depending on if you're faced with opposition with a colleague, employee, employer, whoever it is, friend, partner, whoever they are. And a way to respond is like to pause, like to go back to the core within and know that a core value is respect, so that when you respond, whenever it is, after you reflected on that opposition, you respond in respect, with respect, so that respect is given. There's a quote given by a guy named Bishop Carlton Pearson, And he says that when I say that I love you, what I'm saying is that when I'm with you, you bring love out of me. When I say I hate you, what I'm saying is that when I'm with you, something about you brings hate out of me. So the same thing of core value of respect, it seems like identifying what that is within is that when I do respond, I respond in respect in order to get respect back.
Yes, and to take that further, it's what does respect mean to you? We all have the general definitions that we'll get from Merriam-Webster or Oxford languages, right? But what does that really mean for you? And beyond that, how is you having that value of respect a benefit to anyone that you're engaging with? And how can you communicate that in a way that they understand how you also expect them to show up in relationship with you?
I got to think about that in the current one. That's real.
Yeah, and then what commitments do you have in relation to that value as well? How are you going to honor it?
To the sister in the back who had said that it's just a reminder of like, all right, cool, I got a little more work to do. We ain't all got it together. We still trying to figure some things out. So,
We're all works in progress.
all works in progress. Jeez, it's easy to talk about.
Yeah.
It's
Oh yeah,
just
it's so easy to talk about.
practice.
Yeah.
It's the practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even I fall out of my own alignment sometimes. My partners can definitely attest. There are weeks where I'm harder on myself than I should be, and I have to pull back. It's just that thing of being human. You know, it's yes, I want to give myself grace. Yes, I want to be patient with myself, and I'm human. Some weeks I'm a little less patient, but it just shows up differently now.
Anyone else? Anyone else?
It's totally fine if nobody has any questions. We will not force you to.
And I'm sure there's still time to interact with one another based on the time within the space. I don't know what time limits we have, but nonetheless I'm sure there's a bit of more time to interact. But I would love for all of us to give Crystal a wonderful round of applause. Crystal, you shared it before, and just to close it out in this segment is how do they find you? Yes, the book, but social handles, etc., that you're willing to share your website.
Yeah, I think the easiest is my website, crystallily.co, crystallily.co. And then there's a link to the book website there. You scroll down to the bottom, you can find the social handles. It's at Crystal Lily Creative. And then the email. All of that stuff is on the website. Thank you all so much for being here. Seriously, thank you. I appreciate it. And I appreciate the team at the Salt Eaters for having me. This feels like the perfect first home for my author debut.
Yes.
So honored. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and close out. And then for anybody that wants to workshop some core values, since that is really the root of the work that I do, I am here for you if anybody wants to do that too the rest of the evening, because we have about an hour left in the space. Thank you, Matthew.
Of course. This is really
appreciate you
good.
so much.
Absolutely. This is really, really good. Really good.
And I appreciate you for even pressing me to do it.
Oh my gosh. So much
I
fun.
love the conversation.
Like, and as you know, we talked about it, just like, because I want some other questions to come. I'm like, dang, should I ask that question? Nah, not yet. Because it's just so much that we can go into in conversation about it.
Mm-hmm. We should start a podcast.
Like legit. Like legit.